Good evening, folks. It's a momentous occasion. We are kicking off SummerSlam week in style. We kicked off SummerSlam festivities 6 days ago with the Grin Grappler that went about 4 hours, I believe. Actually went 2.5. It was quite the show, or I'm sure you can co-sign. However, we didn't have our guy. We didn't have Bobby Two Shoes with us. And here he is back in a new location from Titan Towers. Bobby, you're back, pal. How are you today?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing?
Fabulous. Great to see your wonderful face, Bobby. Oracle, you're back again, pal. Feels like I haven't spoken to you in a while, too. It's been too long, man. How are you?
I'm well. Lots of things have happened.
Yep.
Since I've last been on. A coup d'etat occurred within the World Wrestling Federation. That's my theory. I absolutely believe that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people as well believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I can get the feeling you probably agree with that as well.
Oh, yes.
Hunter S. Helmsley survived Julie Hart's curse. And he will now be running creative and running the company, it seems, with Stephanie. I, for one, am not quite as excited as others are about that, though I think the future for women's wrestling in WWE probably looks better now.
Yeah.
I would argue. The men's side, tell you something. If I'm Roman Reigns or somebody else, I might be a little concerned.
It'd be interesting. Very, very interesting.
If you go by the name of, if you were born with the name of Colby Lopez, you might be very happy right now. But
if you go by the name of, and then you said, if your name is.
I kind of, some things are interesting, like Cody's situation. That interests me now.
Oh my god, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Like when he comes back, is Hunter gonna like
pop? Baron Corbin beats him in the middle of the ring.
Or is, what's the deal here? I kind of think Roman's fine. Like I kind of think this Roman will kind of just not wrestle anymore if he feels like he's getting fucked with.
He's not around. I don't think he's gonna be around regardless. To be honest, mate.
Yeah.
I think he's basically done.
See, yeah, I think Brock's done too. I think Brock will stick around for this, and he's out.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby, your thoughts on the potential departure of Brock? Breaking news from the Oracle of Wrestling. What do you think?
I mean, it's probably time, right? Like, there's not a whole ton left for him to do.
Yeah, fair. That's fair. Great question here, Bob. Another one for you. The real question that nobody is asking. I'm about to ask it. What does this mean for Lexi? All caps.
She's back.
She's back.
Yeah.
I will say I do like the tweets where people are like, "Oh, Triple H didn't put the belt on Bianca and Alexa NXT," and it's like that's not really how it works, you know.
Yeah.
Like it's,
I will say this: my excitement. I don't know if excitement would be the word, but my interest in terms of all this stuff won't really get peaked until the Beaver's gone.
For me, it's the draft. I'm all about the draft, you know.
Right.
That night, I'm telling you guys, and I'm not even asking you, I'm booking you, okay? I don't care if we don't do a Grin. When they do that fucking draft show, we're gonna do like an ESPN style show. We're gonna live react to the picks.
Yeah.
Bob's gonna have a ball behind him and a map. I don't know why he has a map. He's gonna have one, like a globe.
Kevin Dunn's gone by the end of the year.
Yeah,
I think he might be
sooner than that, I'd say.
Oh yeah, same with Bruce Pritchard. They're both gone.
Yeah,
head's gonna roll.
Stephanie hates Bruce Pritchard.
Yeah.
So is Triple H too, I think. So he's done.
Good night, God bless.
My question is, Heyman, how's the relationship with Heyman? Good, bad, ugly?
Wade Keller had a scoop today where he said they're friends now, and I popped huge because that's definitely come from Paul. He said they're like really tight, big fan of each other. God, Paul Heyman, imagine leaking that story immediately.
He's probably fine now, though.
Heyman's kind of like a Jeff Jarrett. You know, he's always kind of
and he's so good, man. He's so good at what he does. You know, like you would use him for something, wouldn't you? Surely you have to.
Sure.
He's so good with us. Nonetheless, we'll get into this in more detail in the coming weeks and months. It's going to be so interesting and it impacts the business. But today we're looking back. Because today is the first ever deciding the decade. What is deciding the decade? Well, we're about to find out over this next hour. Basically, here's the concept. We take historic wrestling shows and we compare full decades in respect to each other. So for SummerSlam, while there's 2 shows from the 80s and there's now, with this weekend there'll be 3 shows from the 20s. 20s, that sounds strange, right? We're going to be looking at the 90s, 2000s, and the 2010s. We're going to compare in those decades of SummerSlam. We're going to kind of go through them in traditional, in order, and then at the end we'll kind of loop back. So basically what this show is, gimmicks aside, is that it's kind of a retrospective look at SummerSlam as a whole and its history. On the Grin Grappler, we had a wonderful time, Oracle, you, myself, and Alex, talking about our memories of SummerSlam. I want to give Bob a chance to do the same. SummerSlam, Bob, we all agreed it's like one of our favorites. What about for you, pal?
Yeah, I mean, historically, it's been either their best or second best show of the year, usually. Yeah. I was thinking about it earlier, like kind of preparing for this a little bit. There might be more good SummerSlams than WrestleManias, honestly. It's, the biggest party of the summer. It's always a big highlight,
One thing I noticed doing research this and looking at the famed cagematch.net ratings was that while there's not a ton of SummerSlams that have like 9s and such, there are very few SummerSlams that are deemed awful on that website. And there's definitely WrestleManias that are deemed that way. Like most SummerSlams have a redeeming quality in there. So we'll get into this. This kind of get to the meat of the program here. So before we get into the 3 decades in question, this quickly shows some love to the 80s, which of course 1988 was the first SummerSlam, 89 the second. Fair to say both were pretty middling events, right? I think it's fair to say I don't think either blew anyone away. 88, of course, featured the Mega Powers, Mega Bucks main event. There was also the original Demolition Heart Foundation SummerSlam match, not the one we reviewed on Grin Grappler. And there was also Bulldogs Rougeaus, which is there's a whole lot there, a lot of meat on that bone. There was certainly some bad wrestling too. I think the most memorable thing from 88 was Warriors squash of Honky, right, Oracle? Is that probably the most kind of with anything else you'd say point out from 88 before we move forward?
Oh gosh, I gotta look up the card. It'd be good if I actually did that.
No, I wouldn't
everybody else does notes. I don't do notes.
No, I wouldn't bother. What I meant was more like headlines. This Warrior was the headline, right?
Oh yeah, Warrior winning the squash and Honky was definitely the headline. That was definitely the memorable moment of the night.
89, of course, features the memorable, especially one that's kind of been pimped in recent times, the Brainbusters Heart Foundation opener, which Dave Meltzer famously gave 2 stars, made everyone mad. There's the trios with the Rockers in there, and I think Warrior and Rude is maybe Rick Rude's finest hour in terms of what he produces with Warrior in 89. Bobby, anything else from the kind of 80s block, just those 2 shows? Or like any memories or anything you've seen, looking
No,
into
not really. I mean,
Warrior
and Rude is probably I think it's Warrior's best match. And then, it's Rude's, great job by him. But yeah, I mean, the 2 shows overall, they kind of are mixed. Like, I think they're more bad than good, honestly. But yeah.
I would agree. It definitely shows if they happen today, we'll get much more kind of widely negative responses than they do on nowadays. But it is what it is. So if we were to give a de facto match of the decade of the 80s for SummerSlam, we're going with Warrior Rude. What do we think, guys? Is that what we're going to go with?
Easy. Yeah. Easy.
Okay. All right. Let's jump ahead again because this is the other decade we aren't covering, of course, the 2020s. 2020 itself was the Thunderdome show. There was actually a lot of good on this show. Asuka pulled double duty, right? She had a match with Bayley to open, and she was with Sasha later in the show in a really strong match. Seth and Dominic produced a match that with each passing week becomes more impressive on the Dominic side of things. So I don't really quite know how that happened. Drew and Randy had a strong one. And perhaps the headline was Roman's big return at the end of the show. Oracle, fair to say, SummerSlam 2020 was pretty significant, right? I think it was the first pay-per-view in the Thunderdome.
Yeah, it was. It was a really good show. That Asuka lineup was really good.
Yeah.
And the Rollins Dominic match was shockingly good. Like, the way they just put it together was so well done. And of course, the ending is very famous because Roman's return is basically was the launching pad for the last literally 2 years.
Mhm.
It was the moment that finally made him the top star in the company.
Especially as he won the belt literally the week after. Remember that weird, what was the show called? Anyone?
Payback.
Payback,
Yeah.
there you go. Where Keith famously beat Randy Orton in 5 minutes, and it was a really strange show to look back on.
Yeah.
It has to be noted while we're talking about this, Bray Wyatt, Braun Strowman main event of SummerSlam 2020. Like, that is 2 years later, it feels like a distant memory, right? Maybe it should be based on how the match went, but there you go. 2021, Bobby Two Shoes, you were there, mate. You were there in grand fashion. It's not the most popular SummerSlam. There was some good stuff. Priest and Sheamus, Edge and Seth tore up, and of course Roman and Cena closed the show. Any memories from SummerSlam 2021?
I like the Priest and Sheamus match a lot in the building. I was very high on it. Roman and Cena was fine. It was kind of a weird show because it's one of the first ones where they like stopped doing backstage segments and just kind of filled time with weird stuff. And then, obviously the Bianca and Becky thing was not great, but Brock came back at the end, so that was fun for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would we say is the match of this decade so far for SummerSlam? Are we going to go Seth Dominic? Do we go Asuka and Sasha? What do we think? Or does Edge and Seth take it? What do we reckon, guys? Match of this current decade. We're only 2 in, obviously. What do we think so far?
I think the other 2 Edge and Seth matches were better.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Probably Asuka and Sasha.
Yeah.
Oracle, cosign?
Yeah.
None of us want to give Dominic match of the decade on us, do we?
Tough,
All right, there you go. Okay, so they're the 2 decades we're not covering. I thought it'd be nice to do.
Hold on, now let's admit that none of us want to give Tyler Black the match of the decade.
Of course, yes, I forgot. No problem with Dominic. Great hand, hell of a talent, great upside, Okay, so they're the decades, of course, we're not covering, kind of bookending the process here. Now to the actual format, if there is such a thing. And we're going to start, of course, with the 90s. And the way I've done this is I've looked at the aforementioned cagematch.net. And I've looked at the best 3 SummerSlams of a decade and the worst 3. And we'll just talk them through, and then at the end, we'll kind of put a bow on it, all right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's the top 3 SummerSlams of the 90s. Top is the famed, very controversial, based on last week's Grin Grappler, SummerSlam 92, which I definitely think is a show that leans more on its like atmosphere and memory than sheer quality. Of course, you do have Warrior and Savage on there too. Their rematch on there. The Martel Shawn match, which is famous for kind of the shtick more than anything else, as well as the very polarizing main event.
That's not what it's famous for.
That's the word I was using to describe it. I was just saying shtick, as the line I was walking, because that covers a broad net. And of course, the very polarizing main event, the Contrarian Alex got very mad about last week in opposition to Great Britain. What do you think, Oracle? Is this a great SummerSlam, or is this a little bit of? Are we kind of playing tricks on ourselves here? Do you think?
It's one of those shows that has a classic sort of memory of.
Yeah.
It's like I think if someone were to call it a classic show, I wouldn't even argue it because I don't know, it's the only UK stadium show and 40 years of Vince's WWE, which is now over now, but it was the only one.
Yeah.
So in a way that really kind of makes it a classic, whether the quality of it was good or not.
Yeah, like WrestleMania
3 big event,
almost.
right? Like the big event, like that's a classic show, but it has Hogan and Orndorff, but I mean the show's not that great. There's a snake pick match too on there. But yeah, I mean I think it's a classic show, but I don't think it's good. I don't think it's a great show necessarily.
I would tend to agree. Bobby, where do you stand on the famed Wembley Stadium show?
I think it's interesting because, it is kind of a moment. It's a spectacle. Brett and Bulldog is a big deal. And, I like Savage and Warrior quite a bit as well. The rest of the show, it's kind of hit or miss. But, I get why people remember it so fondly just because, there weren't a ton of them like that leading up to that.
Mm-hmm. It's a moment more than anything else, right? Fair to say.
Yeah.
All right. Up second for the 90s. 1998. A famous show, a famous moment in time. Of course, this features the very, very popular Triple H Rock ladder match, the Austin Taker main event, in which probably their best match, I would say, because them guys wasn't very happy with their chemistry. That's probably their best effort. Obviously, it has that kind of bizarre concussion moment on the head going up, right, and catching Austin on the chin. There's also the Lions Den. I think X-Pac has a match with Jeff Jarrett, which obviously pops Bob because Jeff
There's a
Jarrett.
Val Venus D'Lo Brown match that opens the show that's very good.
There you go. So
I believe that's right. It's Val and D'Lo, right?
Yes.
there you go, Bobby. You seem incredibly well prepared. Thoughts on SummerSlam 98's place as the second best SummerSlam of the decade? Should it have even been higher, perhaps? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I might have it number one. I love the Lions Den match.
Yeah.
And I think it might be my favorite Triple H and Rock match. And probably my favorite Undertaker Austin match. So yeah, those three are all good. And then the opener, like Oracle said, is very solid. And the Jarrett match kind of is what it is. Like, it's hair versus hair. He doesn't get all his hair cut off, but what are you going to do? Yeah, I know. But yeah, I think I would have it number one.
Oracle, would you co-sign this business? 98 for number one?
Oh yeah, especially like when I got the VHS Blockbuster, and you had the oddities come out. When they came out with like the rap and everything, it was great. That was how the whole show for me as a kid. Yeah, I mean, I think it might be. I think it has a very strong argument for number one. There's one other that I can think of that is one of the most crowd pleasing shows that McMahon ever booked, ever.
Wow,
And
really?
I don't even think I'm not sure if it's even in the top three, but
I don't think so. We'll get to that. I do want to quickly show you some love with the Oddities match, which popped me huge on Cage Match. It has a rating that I've never seen before, which is a 0.93, which fucking rules, man. Like, if you're going to do it right, No, don't get a 1. Let's break underneath that. Tremendous, tremendous stuff. All right. That's 98 in the books. 94 is third. Now, of course, your enjoyment of this show will very much hinge on a match that we reviewed last week that is unfortunate. Bob, I guess it makes sense just to ask you, what do you think of Bret and Owen in the cage?
I like it. I don't like it as much as the Mania match, but I think it's very good. I think they could have probably shaved a few minutes off of it, but I think it's a good match overall.
Okay, now, would you agree that if you like SummerSlam 94, you have to really love that match? Because, you have the Bull Nakano match on there.
Mm-hmm.
But, I looked at it today just to get ready for this, and I was like, what else is making... This show's like an 8.
Yeah, because the Undertaker match is bad.
Terrible. Yeah, one of the worst SummerSlam matches ever.
Lex Luger and Tatanka's not great.
Yeah.
And
the turn was a big deal at the time because people didn't expect it.
Yes.
There you go. Oracle, are we missing something here, or is this kind of horseshit? This is
the Diesel Razor match was very good. The Walter Payton involvement was great.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
But the show's it's not even. It's not. I don't even think it's a top 5 SummerSlam in the 90s.
What was the SummerSlam you were alluding to? I'm intrigued.
91.
SummerSlam 91. Okay, catch me up on this. What we got on 91?
So 91 has. Let me get to it because I don't want to miss anything. It's basically one of the more crowd pleasing shows ever in terms of baby faces. It's got
yes.
Oh yeah.
It's got the Open Six band, but it's got Bret winning the IC title. Virgil over Ted DiBiase, which was a huge deal at the time. Mm-hmm. Boss Man over the Mountie in the jailhouse match with the Mountie going to jail, which is great throughout the show. Legion of Doom beating the Nasties for the tag titles. And then, of course, the babyface win in the end. Warrior was on his way out in a big backstage saga deal. Yeah. But still, and the match is not that good. But it was very much a crowd. It was very much a crowd pleasing show, and it had the Savage Liz wedding, which was obviously the Jake stuff in the put. But the Jake stuff was the end of the show. Wasn't it just Coliseum video, or was it showed at the end?
Didn't they hint at it and then did the actual angle on the Coliseum video?
Yeah, I think that's sure.
Right. That's interesting. I did not think of that. It's not in the bottom 3, you'll be glad to know. So there you go. The bottom 3 of the 90s is as follows. Rock bottom is SummerSlam 95, which of course has the infamous Diesel King Mabel main event. It also has the Karma Undertaker match, which is frankly not much better. It does have, though, and this is going to become interesting as we get to the end of the decade. It has the ladder rematch, right? We covered this recently, so it's we were talking about this recently on a historical, not the actual match. So the conversation came out. I can't remember us talking about the rematch is unbelievably good. And Hakushi and 1-2-3 Kid tear up a little bit too. So I get it. Is this just a case of the big stuff missed so big that it can't be considered a good show? It kind of has. It is what it is, right? 95. Bob, why did the King Mabel push not work?
Oh man, how long you got?
Yeah, fair. Never mind. All right. Second worst of the 90s was 1993, which, speaking of great meat rematches, had the Taker Giant Gonzalez rematch, which everyone loves. And of course, most, I think, kind of infamously, it's where they kill the Lex Express, really, right? I mean, they do the count out finish, and that is one of those things that will hurt a rating just because it's a memory people don't like. Of course, it does have the Brit stuff we review positively on Green Grappler, as well as the Steiner's Heavenly Bodies match. Oracle, do you think the Lex Express thing is like one of those wrestling tales that's kind of overtaken any other memory at this point for SummerSlam 93?
Absolutely, it's what everybody remembers it for.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a very '90s like memory of it. Like, and of course, I was, Bobby and I were barely,
Right.
breathing. He and I were little babies with pacifiers, but it's it kind of like evokes like it's weird like Lex Express. I just like Lex in his hair and like around the '90s bus reminds me of like those weird like school TV shows you'd watch when you were a kid,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and like it was weird. That's just my memory of it, and then it all just kind of goes down in flames one by count out. Whoopie fucking doodah.
Yeah, it's tough. Third last in the 90s is 1990 itself, which has the Heart Foundation demolition match that we loved on Green Grappler, but unfortunately there is very little else on that show that I would like to watch. Am I missing something here, Oracle? Am I missing a trick with SummerSlam 90?
Hogan Quake is very good.
There you go. Bobby, add it to the spreadsheet. Bobby, anything else on SummerSlam 90?
No, I agree on Hogan Earthquake and the tag match, but that's about it.
All right. So a couple other matches here from the 90s that need to be talked about. Oracle actually brought up 91, which of course has Perfect and Britt, which we all kind of, I do think it's slightly overplayed, but it's a really good match, don't get me wrong. We talked about Taker and Brett from 97 on the same show. The Boiler Room Brawl needs to be mentioned, right?
Like I just watched SummerSlam 96 yesterday.
There you go.
That thing is crazy, man. Like the show didn't hit as much as I wanted it to, and I'll talk about that.
Right.
I'll talk about the show a little bit more in depth when we get there. But Owen and Salvio isn't bad. It's a good opener. Mero and Goldust have a solid match. Mero fucking bust out the shooting star press for the first time.
Oh, yes, indeed. God bless.
And they bust it out and they do a near fall spot with it. It's so ridiculous. But
these kids these days, Oracle, huh? Oh, go home on the pop, bro. You know what I mean? Shame.
Yeah. But that Boiler and Brawl is great stuff. I can't put the show too highly. Sean Vader's very good for the first part,
Yes.
and then Sean pouts, and then they go to like these multiple finishes that made Vader look worse than it would have been if Sean just beat him clean.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I did have those matches noted though. I did because they're significant, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
What do we think the match of the decade was for SummerSlam? My note here is it one of the two ladder matches?
Probably.
Yeah.
What do we debate? It also feels like Brett must kind of. It feels harsh to have Brett take this in some form or fashion. He has like 5 candidates, What do we think, Bob? Which way are you going for match of the decade, SummerSlam 1990s?
I mean, I think Brett Bulldog's like a very boring pick, but it is just, and the environment obviously adds to it too.
Right.
I'm not saying that should be the pick, but like,
I get
it's up there. Yeah.
It's one of the more iconic ones. I just don't know if I like the match enough.
Yeah.
Oracle, which direction are you looking here on SummerSlam? Not match of the decade for SummerSlam in the 90s.
Sean Razor always comes up to me immediately,
Yeah.
but that Rock Triple H match is fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's pick between those two. So you're going Rock, Triple H.
I think I don't know. It's tough. It's almost one of
It
those things
is
where I'd
tough.
have to sit there and watch them back to back. It's tough.
I think I would lean Razor, Sean. Bob, where are you standing on this between the two ladder matches?
Yeah, I think between the two, I would go with Triple H and Rock.
Let's go with that. Bobby's word is final in my view. All right, so Triple H, and also the thing that's cool about that one is it's about significant. That's a really interesting moment in time because that's for the IC title, right? It's just really interesting to see where those guys ended up. One of them ended up running the company. I don't know if you heard, he saved the World Wrestling Federation.
Mm-hmm.
But enough about Dwayne The Rock Johnson's purchase of WWE. Into the 2000s. Now, I know Orton and I talked to him about this off air, and he said, I'm not sure. We'll talk about this, but I think the 2000s are going to come out to the winner here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into it. Here's the top three for the 2000s. We start. SummerSlam of the decade is considered to be the best SummerSlam ever via CageMatch.net, and I think it's the consensus too. I even got a text from the great Bobby earlier about this. SummerSlam 02. Perhaps the most loaded lineup WWE has ever produced, legitimately. It's like an all-star squad. Opens with Angle and Ray. You got the famed Shawn Michaels Triple H match. By famed, I mean the only good one. And then Brock and Rock with that kind of epic encounter in the main event. Bob, you messaged me earlier. Feel free to actually put this out there because we're almost certainly going to do it. This is a big one for you, I sense. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it might be my favorite WWF pay-per-view of all time. Might be their best of all time. Start to finish, good stuff. We're doing a Grin along for it on August 25th for the 20th anniversary. So that'll be fun.
That'd be huge.
But yeah, just start to finish, great stuff. It kind of feels a lot like WrestleMania 30, where they keep it, 5, 6, or 7 matches, I think, and they all have purpose. They all just kind of keep moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just the some of the matchups, like even Jericho and Flair is not even like particularly good, but it's like it's Jericho versus Flair.
Yeah,
like fuck, man. Like there's so much on that show. Oracle memories of SummerSlam 2002.
So it's the first SummerSlam I ever saw live.
God bless.
Dad ordered it, and my uncle and cousin came over. Dylan was over. Dylan was living in Tennessee at the time. My uncle told me, Devin, stand up, flex your muscles. I was shirtless. I was 9.
Yeah.
And motherfucker, I was like, he was like Walter, and I was like Kaiser over here. This dude lit me up and chopped, because I flexed my muscles, and he chopped me so hard, knocked me off my feet.
Good Lord, man.
Yeah.
But you wasn't even on the gas then either, was you?
No. I couldn't, it was tough, man.
Wow.
But yeah, that show had Angle Ray, which is one of the all-time great openers.
Absolutely.
Edge and Eddie's an excellent match. That match is great. Book Dust versus Storm and Christian's really good. Taker and Test is a really good match.
There's another one too that we.
Oh yeah, RVD's ponytail comes out. If you want to watch that, It's awesome. Like his ponytail, literally, because like we were talking about it on the Grin Grappler last week. RVD's ponytail literally comes loose fully, and we were like, all the kids were like, "Oh my god, RVD's ponytail, it's gone. His hair's." Of course, Triple H and Shawn did have a good match. I like their match from Raw in 2003 with a terrible finish, but that match I think is actually their best.
I don't think I've seen that, to be fair. That's fine.
Yeah, it's really another good match.
I've actually thought this match is overrated, but it is a good match. And of course, the main event is an absolute blast. Rock and Brock. Yeah, a top, easily a top 10 WWE show of all time.
It's such an interesting time too, because it's like a mix of eras, right? It's like this really unique. I think it's why people remember the video game. The Here Comes the Pain video game is so fondly remembered, I think, because it's like a mix of eras. So you have this incredible roster, right? It's an extraordinary lineup. All right, up second for the 2000s is 2001. Saying that very era. It's a different time, but it's the same kind of stretch there. Most remembered for the Kurt Angle Steve Austin match, which is like Just
fucking killer match. One of the
yeah,
best matches in the history of the company.
it's
That
so
match is that
awesome.
good. Total
Like,
bloodbath, brawl.
mm-hmm.
Like, it's must see. Like, it's legitimately. There are some people in message board circles that think it's one of the 10 best matches in the history of the company.
It's awesome. And it's like a great encapsulation of heel Austin. As much as people criticize the decision, his work is so good in that stretch. He fucking rules in that match. Of course, you got the Van Dam Hardy deal. You got Rock and Booker's a fun time. I mean, it's
Rock and Booker's super fun.
Yeah, the match is really a fun time. I know the angle's kind of like historically people look at it that way because Rock kind of killed him, right? Like but the match itself is a lot of fun. Bob, your thoughts on SummerSlam 2001, which is one that honestly I was kind of caught off guard when I saw it this high, and then I looked at it and was like, that tracks. Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, that definitely feels like the right placement for it. Austin and Angle's very good. Rock and Booker's good. The ladder match is awesome, and then there's some other good stuff just kind of sprinkled in there. Like it's good start to finish. I think it's a proper placement, really.
Yeah.
Like Edge and Lance Storm for two guys that the three of us don't love. That match is really well put together. It's a really good opener.
It's the opener, right? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I think again, it's a bit of interesting times, right? It's right in the midst of that very polarizing.
Waltman and Tajiri have a fun match on that show too, if I'm not mistaken.
My God, well, all hell. All right, but I think it's fair to say if you haven't seen Angle and Austin, make time for it. Make a point of it. Third for the 2000s is 2008, which was the Hollywood themed SummerSlam. I want to say, right? Wasn't that the one with the kind of movie stage and all that stuff? Remember that deal? Tell me if I'm wrong on that, folks. I might be. Main evented by the match that I've never fully got, but is like one of the most critically acclaimed matches in WWE history, which is the Edge Undertaker match, where they replay, Taker replays all the stuff that Edge did to him in the angle. Which I've never loved that match. It leans a lot on weaponry, but I get why people like it. Batista and Cena is like a classic kind of Clash of the Titans deal, right? I'm kind of surprised it's third for the 2000s. I'll be honest with you, but maybe I'm missing a trick. Oracle, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising. People really like the Edge Taker match. That feud was a huge deal at the time. It was like a really, really, really big deal. Probably it was honestly the most popular feud overall from all fan bases. Jericho Michaels was the most popular within the message board circles and stuff.
Right. And you have the angle on this show, right? Where they do the big angle.
Where Jericho punches Sean's wife.
Yeah.
Which was an insane angle to do. Granted, I think it was by accident. Like Sean ducks and he punches her or whatever. Yeah. This show, Cena Batista was a really big because that was the first time they ever did that. Of course, Cena got hurt on the powerbomb spot, and he didn't really become Super Cena until he came back at Survivor Series. I always thought Cena was firmly the guy from Survivor Series 08 until Survivor Series 2015.
Yeah.
I thought he was the top guy, but there were other people. And then this was the last match he had before he came back. It was totally there was nobody in his league. So this was the end of that. Jeff Hardy and MVP had an opener that was pretty good. Excuse me. Triple H Khali was terrible. What was that? What else was on that show?
It's
when they're like a Santino and Beth versus Kofi and Mickey.
I believe so, yeah. It's honestly a pretty thin show, genuinely.
Yeah, it's not a great card. I remember watching it. We had a bunch of friends over and stuff. It was fun watching it live, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's that high.
It's interesting, Bob. What do you think? You slightly surprised by this also?
Yeah, that's a little higher than I would think. I don't know what I would have there instead, though. 2003 is pretty good, 2004 is pretty good, 2005 is pretty good, but I don't know that it's got higher highs than Cena Batista's a really good match, and I think Edge and Undertaker is actually pretty awesome. Yeah. So with those, it's not really surprising, but yeah.
That's the consensus. To be clear, I don't love that match, but people adore that match. That's considered one of the great WWE, matches. So I get it 100%. All right, let's look at the bottom three of the 2000s, which was interesting to me. We start with 2007, which is the rock bottom of this trio, which of course features Batista and Khali, which is hilarious. That's the year before another bad Khali title match, which at some point you thought they'd learn, but no, absolutely not. There is the Triple H Booker T deal that no one remembers fondly. Not that one, the other one. But there is a good John Cena Randy Orton match on there. The main event is actually very, very good. I understand that sounds kind of, people dismiss that because John Cena was Randy Orton, but they have some really good matches. You said the same yourself. Bobby, what do you think? A little bit unfair to SummerSlam 07, or does this show suck?
I mean, it's not great. I think the Cena Orton match is pretty good, but everything else is just kind of there.
Yeah. Look that way to me. Oracle, do you think this is the case?
This show had tons of hype going in because Cena Orton was a mega main event, like a super huge main event that everybody was looking forward to. And the other two things was the return of Triple H and Ray. Triple H came back, returned, beat Booker. Ray came back and beat Chavo. So it was a huge I saw the SummerSlam Hooters. And it was in the, tell you what, the heat in that Hooters, brother, for Randy and Cena. My God.
Hanging from the rafters.
Yeah.
They were packed in, brother.
Yeah, it was.
I bet it was.
Packed in with terrible wings. But yeah, it was. But I can't. The show was not great. It was a blast at the time. Because you're in there eating food, scantily clad women, watching wrestling, bunch of rednecks and jocks,
It was a good time.
It was a good time.
Not a good wrestling show, but a good time.
Right. There you go.
2006 is up next. I think the most infamous element of this is the Hogan-Randy Orton deal, which is honestly so comical that people just erased it from their minds. People just don't pretend it just didn't happen, which kind of rules. Everyone talks about the Shawn match, and no one seems to actually discuss how weird this all was. But anyway, there is some good here. The Edge Cena main event, which I don't have vivid memories of, but is very well received. Flair and Foley have their deal, which there's a particular element of that's kind of, unfortunate, but it's still, the same.
Total fucking insane bloodbath. The stuff they do is insanely graphic.
So this is what I mean by the standards kind of changing. Do you remember Edge Cena well, guys? Because I don't. Oh,
no,
not particularly.
So
the TLC matches are most heralded. So
this match has a really strong review, right? And we agree Flair Foley pops us tremendously just on the insanity of it. And it's there are 90 SummerSlams with higher ratings than this to have one match that people kind of liked. It's really interesting how and look at now the last year. Alex talked about. I'm not saying it was a good SummerSlam. But that's the lowest rated SummerSlam ever. It's the way the standards have changed. I find to be interesting. But, what do we think, Bobby? A little bit harsh on SummerSlam 06. Does it speak to the strength of the era? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it speaks to the strength of the ones around it. The Edge Cena TLC match is better. So it's, I don't know. It's not a bad show. It's kind of there. It probably would be the worst one of the decade up to that point, though. I mean, depending on what people think of 2003, but.
Well, 2004 is in third for the worst of the decade. So there you go. That caught you a little bit off guard. People did not like the Kane Hardy match with all of the many shenanigans that came in that angle.
Yeah.
People definitely didn't like Taker and JBL.
Fair.
Triple H worked Eugene.
Yeah, that was bad.
Orton and Chris Benoit. I was going to go with the other name, and I just decided to say his real name at that point. Is very good, but I can understand why people don't really keep that in consideration when rating the show as a whole.
Yeah.
So
I now years later I don't regret cheering for Randy Orton as much as I did that night.
Vindicated, you said.
Yeah.
That was your response to the news.
Oh God, 14-year-old me, man, I really regretted cheering against Benny, but after this, I think I made the right choice.
He wiped the sweat off his brow. He said, "Thank goodness, dodged a bullet with that one." All right. Anyway, Bob, you seem surprised by 04 being down here. What do you think? Have you misread this? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I kind of forgot how 2004 wasn't very good because SmackDown lost a whole bunch of people,
Yes.
after WrestleMania, and then Triple H moved away from the title, so they did like some stuff that was good, and then moved into the Eugene stuff, which was not good. Yeah, I mean, I think the main event's still pretty good, but they were kind of down in 2004 a little bit.
Oracle, anything else on 2004 WWE other than the
I
prior-
loved the Eugene Evolution feud at the time, but in
Yeah.
hindsight, I'm sure it does not hold up well.
Yeah, that'd be my
Um,
guess.
Mhm.
But at the time, it was very entertaining stuff. But it's
There you go.
2022, and that was 2004, so things have
Yeah.
changed.
Get what you get, I suppose.
Yeah.
Other matches from the decade, obviously, TLC 2000, right? The 2000 installment of that whole series of matches involving ladders, table chairs. I don't know if this one was called TLC. Was this called TLC? Or was this the first one that was actually called? Because I know one of them was just a ladder match, and they rebranded it formally. I think it's the
Triangle ladder
first-
was WrestleMania. This was called TLC.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Remember Foley did the voiceover. Tables and ladders and chairs. Oh my!
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
It has the second Elimination Chamber match in 03.
03.
Yeah,
Yep.
03. The frankly bizarre Eddie and Ray ladder match where both guys like fall and crazy
Almost-
shit happens, but it kind of
almost
rules.
Get hurt. Yeah.
Punk and Jeff have a great ladder match from 09 too.
Mm-hmm.
Any other matches from the decade in terms of SummerSlam Oracle that we have missed in kind of our loose coverage of the decade? What do you think?
Ray
Any
and Dolph for the IC is excellent in 09.
That's a great one. That's the first Let's Go Ziggler moment too, where they really get behind him, right? So that's a hell of a match. Great call. God, Ray's great. 2009, brother.
He's something. And
He was the
Matt Hardy.
veteran.
The sprint they have at SummerSlam is really good.
Yeah.
Like people, I was mad about it at the time because like they built up the feud all summer.
Mhm.
It paid off in legitimately one of the best matches in the history of the company in Unforgiven 05. That cage match in Unforgiven 05 is legitimately one of the 25 best matches in the history of WWE. Because they do a big payoff and everything. But that sprint where like Matt Hardy gets bloodied and shit fucking rules.
It's
But
pretty wild.
It's just like a 3 or 4 minute match, but it's really good.
It's more of an angle in some ways, right?
Yes. Yes. Sean and Hogan's worth seeing just for the spectacle of Sean being ridiculous. Even though I hate Sean, like it's still just kind of amusing.
Also, like people forget that match was well received critically, which is like one of the weirdest things in history. Like in history, people think that match was this like massive like miss. If you read all the reviews from that time, every critic is like, that was a good match. Like people liked it,
Yep.
It's kind of wild. Some love for Steve Blackman and Shane McMahon, which has obviously got the famous stunt bump. Bobby, anything else from the 2000s you'd like to show some love to?
I don't think so. I think the Brock Kurt match is probably their second best of their 3 matches, better than the Iron Man match, but yeah.
What do we got for match of the decade for the 2000s? Which way are we going on this front? This one's really interesting me. I think it's Angle Austin.
I think it's Angle Austin pretty easily.
Yeah, that's fair.
There you go. It's weird. When I was looking at these matches, I was like, there's a lot that I'd put in the second tier, but I honestly have that alone in the top one. And I was
I think
unsure.
Angle Ray's like up there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go.
That match is an amazing opener. Like that's like one of the best openers in the history of the company.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure if you guys would be as on board with this Angle Austin business as I'm glad. I'm very glad. I knew Oracle would.
That match is absolutely incredible.
Fucking rules.
When he's got Austin in the ankle lock on the floor and he's just covered in blood. Oh, incredible.
It's visceral, you can feel it. It's just all right. On to the 2010s. Now, this is always so interesting because the 2010s is not a fondly remembered time in WWE generally. But when you look at the shows, you kind of realize how much good wrestling has been spread across these shows, which Oracle, you're very consistent in kind of citing that. Speaking of such, the best SummerSlam, the highest rated SummerSlam, I should say, of the 2010s is 2013, which I think is second to 02 all time, I think, on Cage Match.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, of course, Brock and Punk, which is just an absolute masterpiece. And then Bryan and Cena. I mean, that is one of the great 1-2 punches the company's ever produced in terms of main event matches. Money in the Bank program, centerpiece, Alberto Del Rio is on here too, and has a really good match for Christian.
Del Rio Christian is a match of the year candidate in any other year.
It's really good. Yeah, it's a tremendous all time. And I'm not even doing the Del Rio bit, but Christian is fucking incredible in that one. 2013 is a classic, honestly. Bob, your thoughts, pal?
Yeah, I think that is definitely the right choice for number one. Just a really solid show. And again, I think it is second best all time after 2002 as well.
Agreed, Oracle?
Yeah.
I think these two matches, the best two matches from this show, are going to be in conversation. We talk about best of the decade. You know,
Easily.
Up second, we have 2011. Randy Orton and Christian, of course, with their big final, kind of note of that wonderful feud. And Cena and Punk's rematch for the special guest referee stick, which is not, by any means, it is not Money in the Bank, but it's still John Cena and CM Punk, at the height of their popularity relative and producing kind of that spectacle is something to be said for it. It's a weird time because that match really shouldn't have been happening that soon after the its predecessor, but you get what you get, I suppose. Oracle, any thoughts on SummerSlam 2011?
Saw this in a bar called George's in Charleston, South Carolina.
Was Heat good for that one? How was it?
I only was. We're sitting there watching it, and there's an old wrestling fan, an old man. He used to go to these shows all the time. One of Dylan's buddies, and this guy, I mean, he popped huge because he predicted the Del Rio thing.
Oh.
And he popped huge,
Is it Michael
I
Hayes?
predicted it. He went crazy. He predicted the Del Rio cash in at the end.
God bless.
Punk Cena was good.
Yeah.
It's
about where it levels out, to be honest.
Good, yeah, right? Orton Christian's great.
Yes. Best match on the show.
There's an opening 6 minutes very good too.
Yes.
Like Ray, Morrison, Kofi maybe versus I can't remember who's on it. Bryan and Wade Barrett have an excellent match on this show that nobody ever talks about. That match is great.
He's something else, isn't he? That Bryan Danielson fella.
Mm-hmm.
You heard he's back?
Is that what happened?
No, he's back.
He's back. Yeah. He is back. I was like, oh, so that's what I heard is back. I was like,
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
he's back.
Oh, Sheamus and Mark Henry's fun on that show too. The show's actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
But the finish always gave me a sour taste in my mouth.
Same for you, Bob. Not a fan of the finish, but like the rest of the show.
Yeah.
All right, this one surprised me in third for the decade. I have to say, because I have no memory of people liking this show, to be totally transparent. SummerSlam 2015, which has the Seth Cena match that has that finish. The fucking, what's his name?
John Stewart.
John Stewart was the finish. No one liked that at the time. It has an Owen Cesaro match that's really good, but it's just a cold match for the sake of a match. And Taker and Brock, as much as the match is a triumph and it over-delivers, the finish is like
it's unbelievably bad.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe this was third. Am I missing something?
The one thing I remember about this show is that Demi Lovato had the theme song for it, "Cool for the Summer." Yeah. So every time I think of this show, it's cool for the summer.
It's like I remember that no one seemed to be fond of this show when it happened, And to be clear, I think Brock and Taker actually kind of rules, but the finish is fucking insane.
Yeah, it's the match for the famous Brock sits up loud and Taker sits up and does it too.
Yeah.
And we all roared with laughter in the living room when it happened.
I find it to be positive. Bob, what do you think? Am I misreading this one? Why is this third?
No, I think it's a little high because personally, the Brock and Taker Hell in a Cell match is better.
Both of them, right?
Yeah, exactly. The Rowan Cena match is good, but Jon Stewart just standing there for 30 seconds, kind of telegraphing what he's going to do. I probably would have had even 2014 would have been higher than this.
Me too.
Yeah. 2014,
which has the Seth Ambrose Lumberjack.
Mm-hmm.
It has Roman and Orton's match, which from what I can gather has become very divisive, but I think it's still a good match. And Brock and Cena is that an unbelievable,
incredible. I give that when I was doing Cena. I watched every Cena pay per view. I give that match full 5.
Right, that's.
I think that match is absolutely amazing.
I don't know, Oracle. What's going on with this retconning of 2015? No one liked this shit, did they?
No, I think it was a fun weekend of wrestling.
Yes,
and it was the same weekend as Brooklyn, the original Brooklyn won, and I think it benefited from being the same weekend as that. And I think the show was just good enough to where it wasn't gonna take away the fun from Brooklyn,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people sort of sort of gets pulled in the gravitational greatness of Brooklyn 1, and people sort of lump it in there when it really shouldn't be. I mean, you had the fucking submission sorority or whatever the hell they were called. In that terrible triple threat tag match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like three team tag, or whatever the hell it was. It was a 9-woman tag. You know what I'm talking about, the 3 team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was awful.
Triple trios, brother.
Yeah. Stephen Amell wrestled on that show.
Yes.
Against Cody.
Wow, what a thought that is. Okay, the worst 3 of the decade. We start with 2010, which features, of course, the Nexus ordeal, which is like, one of those things that overshadows everything else. Kane and Ray is one of the world title matches here. Orton Sheamus is the other. Big Show beats the Straight Edge Society in a handicap match.
Oh, God, that pissed me off at the time.
Fucking incredible. 2010 does not look particularly appealing, I must say, Bobby. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever really seen it start to finish. I just know the Nexus stuff, obviously. And yeah, it's not great.
Oracle, clue us in here, because Bobby and I are not too familiar. We're missing out on a classic SummerSlam here with 2010.
No, trust me. 2010 WWE is like, don't watch it.
Yeah.
Except for Superstars. And watch every single one of those. Those are great.
Every single one of those.
Oh, Chris Masters has like 30 matches better than any Ray Phoenix match. But
there's no reason for that, is there? Come on. We're having a good time.
Maybe 30. I'd have to look at it. It might only be 20 or 22.
22 specific. This feels like you've got a ballpark number here. This is very interesting. All right, fine. We'll leave it there. 2017 is up next here in the bottom 3. Jinder and Shinsuke has got like a 1.5, which is like, again, that's more of the moment and what it meant, right? People just couldn't believe it. Like, I'm sure the match wasn't good, but I don't think it was like a, where they fucked loads of stuff up. I think it was more a case of just people found it boring, right? And the wrong guy won. Cass and Big Show go 10 minutes.
Oh, that was dreadful. That one ends up in the cage.
I think so. And Cena and Corbin have the opener where like Cena clearly has no intention of giving him anything. You remember that? Like in a time where Cena, like 2 years prior, had given everyone a chance to kick out his finish, he just beat Corbin flat, like with no kind of drama. It was wild.
People feel like this guy sucks.
But it did have the famed 4-way, right? One of Bob's favorites, the kind of Avengers fight scene main event with Joe, Braun, Roman, and Brock.
We can't count the pre-show tag, can we?
No, that's not included on these, but that was incredible. I still can't believe that wasn't on the main show. And maybe their best match together, honestly.
That match is incredible.
And also the Shield bar match is tremendous.
Where Cesaro breaks the beach ball, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He gets mad and just totally breaks the beach ball, and he gets them back in the match because of it.
It fucking rules. So there's good stuff on this show, but is it case, Bob, of the bad being bad enough that it kind of drags down the rest?
Yeah, I think so.
Oracle, anything on the 2017 front?
Oh, this show was so bad, dude. Like they bookended it with. The funny thing is, Naomi and Natalia even had a pretty decent match, but Natty won the belt. Nobody was mad.
Yeah.
So like, this was bookended with 2 really great stuff, and what I mean bookended by is there's a match we can't even include in this discussion, which is on the pre-show, which was just incredible. Which was New Day and Usos, but the main event was outstanding. But it was just, I mean, you're just sitting there waiting for that 4-way, and they built the 4-way so well that like,
yeah, it
didn't. Even though you were sitting through this 4-hour show, you were still like as pumped for it as you were before. But man, alive, was that 4 hours before rough? God, that shit sucked.
Yeah, you can kind of see the transition of when these shows got really long here, right? It's pretty difficult. 2016 is third from the bottom, which has the, famed John Cena AJ Styles match where Cena puts him over. However, it also has the bizarre Dean Ambrose Dolph Ziggler title match, which was one of those ones where it was like, why did they even do any of this once it ended? And in addition, the Brock and Orton thing kind of lives in infamy, right or wrong. That's just the way it will always be kind of remembered.
When Jericho stood up for the locker room.
Do you know he was going to bite his nose off? Did you see that clip where he said that?
He's scared. Brock, I'll tell you what, Brock was scared.
Oh, yeah, he was shook. Yeah. Bob, this is the night your hero got embarrassed. False.
Yeah, it is kind of a bummer because, like, if Brock and Orton have an actual, proper 12-minute match, it's probably very good.
Yeah.
And this is, like, the only time that they've ever wrestled, even, in their first run. So, yeah, it's a bummer.
What a fucking insane finish. Like, why?
Let's open them hard way. Yeah, good idea.
So bizarre.
The fans were so pissed.
Mm-hmm.
My dad and brother were at that show, and like they were like, "Yeah, everybody was just mad."
Would they push back on this being the third worst SummerSlam of the decade, do you think? Or are they co-signing that?
They probably would co-sign that.
Well, there you go. At least AJ and Cena was good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Other matches from the decade. I think it's worth noting the, Triple H and Brock, I guess.
Yeah.
That's their best match together. Some people really love it. I think Brock has a really good performance in that match. But because I think he sells the diverticulitis gimmick really well.
Mm-hmm.
But the finish is always hilarious. Alex and I are on here joking about one time, but Triple H is wanting fans to cheer for him. Everybody's just okay, all right. He's supposed to be thank you, Triple H to cheers, and he's staggering around.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he gets in the Kimura lockers. I can't remember what it was, but it's so stupid.
I must say, Andrew brings up Trish Charlotte. I was disappointed when I looked at recent years. I was kind of expecting there to be a couple classics in the women's division. They've not really hit on SummerSlam particularly. That one I think is one of the better ones because that was a good moment.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the title matches, if you go through them, Sasha and Charlotte have that really weird one at 16 where they fuck stuff
good
up.
Match, but yeah,
it's kind of a mess.
It takes them 15 seconds to hit the Splash Mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Splash Mountain, whatever.
Alexa and Sasha's one is way worse than the Great Balls of Fire one they had.
Yeah.
Alexa and Ronda is a squash. What's the other one on that one? Naomi's the year before. She's with Natty.
The other one on 18 is when Becky turns heel and gets big. A triple threat with Charlotte and
that's fine. Yeah, that's pretty good. But 19 is Natty and Becky, which is actually probably the best of the lot.
That match is very good.
That's probably the best one.
Yeah.
So but if you look at it, in that 3-4 year stretch there, they didn't really now any of those, right? It's fair to say, and kind of in terms of it's a massive match. Hopefully this year, with the Oracle of Wrestling in attendance, they produce a classic for the world.
I think they're really going to try to have Becky and Bianca go out there and go 25 and kill it. I really think they will. With only 8 matches, although it's possible Triple Paul throws some other stuff on there, but I think they're going to go. I'm honestly more worried about. There's a 60% chance of thunderstorms on Saturday.
Are you pumped for Gargano and Ciampa to get a spot on SummerSlam?
I'll tell you something. Tommy Ciampa's already there. He's going to be getting pushed.
What if they? How Tony announced Dragon Liam Rouge? They just put the graphic up and was here we go. They just did that for SummerSlam. One final beat again. Bob, any other matches from this decade we think we should show some love to on the SummerSlam front?
No, I know I'm higher on Seth and Brock than you guys are, but I actually do enjoy that match quite a bit.
I agree with you. I think the match is very good.
Okay. Well, that's good. I didn't know where you guys would be. I know Oracle probably doesn't like it, but
I think it's a good match, but not as good as others. A lot of people that have similar opinions that I do like that match a lot too, to be fair.
Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
That was a loaded comment on my part, wasn't it, Oracle?
Yeah.
Also,
I gotta book my lesbian love triangles.
You did. You was yep, and then you was actually, hang on a second. This is a good one. Listen, bless Seth freaking Rollins. The one with Dolph's good. I prefer their match on Raw. There's no finish before.
Their match on Raw is better, yeah.
Yeah, but it's still good. Any others, lads? What do we think? Feels like we're short.
Feels like Dolph and Goldberg, just because that's the only time they've used Goldberg the way they should.
Pop.
That was fun.
Yeah, feels like a shot.
19 was a good show.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Is that the one with Bliss Cross versus the Iconics?
Yes.
Yes.
Good show.
Trish Charlotte, Becky Natty, Brock Seth.
Seth frickin' Rollins?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Hell of a show. All right, what we got for match of the decade with the 2010s? I think this one is... I personally would be going with Brock Punk.
I think so, too.
I would agree.
Wow, we're pretty locked in on these.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're a hell of a team. We should book the NWA. CM Punk and Brock Lesnar is our match of the decade. Okay, so now here's what we're going to do. Of the 3 decades we've discussed, which is the best show? Bob, I'll start with you.
I'm gonna go with the 2000s. I think it kind of tails off.
Bob, hold on. Don't jump the gun. Just the best show for now. I'm sorry. I shouldn't. Just the single show. Best one.
2002.
Okay, folks, pretend you didn't hear that. That was a spoiler. We're going to get there here. The Oracle of Wrestling. Which show are you going with? Best show in SummerSlam history, or at least from those 3 decades, basically SummerSlam history.
2002.
I personally would vote 2013, but I absolutely get it is now the consensus. 2002 is basically our greatest SummerSlam ever.
Kane and Bray hurts it, which is not even terrible, but it's just bad enough compared to the entire card of 02 that I have to penalize it some.
That's fair. All right, what's the best match in SummerSlam history? This one is, to me, really compelling because I think Punk and Brock's really got a fighting chance.
I think Brock Punk or Angle Austin. It's one of those two. It's tough.
Yes, it's not one from the 90s, right? It's fair to say.
Yep.
Yeah.
What would be your vote, Bob?
Yeah, I'd probably go with Brock and Punk just because, they're 2 of my favorites of all time.
I would go Austin Angle, Oracle, deciding vote.
I gotta go with blood. Otherwise, I mean, I'm gonna go with blood to pop Joe and to pop the chat because it's really hard for me to pick, but I'm gonna go with blood here.
They're both unbelievable matches.
Yeah, they're both like 2 of the best matches literally in the history of the company.
Absolutely. I think within those answers we have our overall answer. Right? I mean, it goes without saying 90s is last. It is what it is. I think it's pretty clear considering it's taken best show and best match. I think the 2000s Oracle, as you kind of predicted, was the case. Bob, let's get back to you because that was your kind of leading take. 2000s for the top spot, Bobby, is that what we're going with?
Yeah, I go with the 2000s. I just think it has the highest peaks, and I don't think I know about halfway through the decade it starts to go down a little bit, but even the down shows I don't think are as bad as the ones in the 90s or 2010s.
Highest ceiling and highest floor in that regard, right? It kind of feels like a no-brainer. Oracle, I know you're not surprised you predicted it to me, but it's pretty much a lock, right? 2000 takes it?
I think so, yeah.
All right, so there you go, folks. 2000s is the best decade in SummerSlam history. If you'd ever wondered that before, why? But you would, I don't know. But if you did, we've answered it. Job done. You can close that one. That doubt has been secured in the mind. We've got the 2010s in second and the 90s in third. We hope you've enjoyed this. This is something we can do for the WWE Big Four, right? We can play around with other ones and different concepts and different ideas. But I kind of view this as a nice way to go down memory lane and look at some of the good and bad of SummerSlam's history. It's an event we all love very, very much. So, Bobby, any final words, plugs, and promotions, pal?
No, I don't think so. This is a lot of fun. Really good idea. Glad that I was able to come back and be here, and hopefully we'll be around for a lot of stuff this week.
I'm glad too, Bobby. Wasn't the same about you, pal. Every chat was just filled with "Where's Bobby?" It was very difficult for us. The Oracle of Wrestling. Any final words?
What the hell are we doing tomorrow again?
We are doing the formal SummerSlam 2022 preview show.
Okay.
Oh, is that the preview show tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I should be there for that too then.
God bless.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Is that your final words, to be clear?
Yeah, I was like, I can't remember what show we're doing tomorrow.
All right, tremendous. Okay, folks, I'll be back tomorrow morning with the Burt, 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm going to do some G1 talk, I think. Maybe look at Progress, the show that I was at yesterday and got the shit kicked out of me on. It was actually a good time. I'm going to talk about a little bit.
Sightings.
Dude, he was having a whirl of a time,
He
definitely thought he thought the guys were going to really suck. Like, not in suck in the way that you think they suck, Oracle. I mean, I don't think he realized they would do cool moves as well, Popped him very much. Like brain busters. He's like, oh, holy shit. Wrestling up close, man. We can take it for granted because we've seen wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's not seen it, the modern style is kind of crazy, man. Dudes just they could do everything, Opening match was 4 dives in it. I was like, well, next guy better bring out a gun, I don't know what we're going to do. Anyway, talk about tomorrow on the Burt. Tomorrow night, we'll be doing the SummerSlam preview show. Probably be these three beautiful faces, as well as the wonderful Jay Sean Nicole. I don't think confirmed she's going to join us on that one. He's always there in spirit.
I wonder if
think
we can
one- you know-
convince Shoot to watch WWE with Triple H in charge in
I'm
the
working
next
on it.
6 months.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Slow process, you know.
Should we really try and like get him to watch at least some TV, just see if we can just successfully do it?
I think I'm going to commit to like a couple things on the show, you know, like just
Yeah.
a couple.
I will never try and force him to watch it regularly. I just want to see if we can get him to watch it some, you know.
I just think it'd be funny if we work a bit where we pretend there's something on it that's like really great. Like, man, you got to see this angle they're doing, you know. This
Really
shit,
mad.
you know,
Get
this
you
stuff
mad
that the
at
Miz
Maddie.
is doing. Yeah, it'd be tremendous. So that is tomorrow, and we'll see where the week takes from there. Thursday night, I don't want to plug the J Shell Appreciation Society, which is the Bianca Belair kind of Grin Grappler-esque content from J Shell. So that's Thursday, and we will see how things pan out. Other than that, we hope you enjoyed this. Enjoy Raw. Right, that's still on, right? Raw. That's just started. My God. Hopefully the plans on Fightful Select look good. Keep grinning. Oh, how, and enjoy this outro.